She is very passionate about the environment.
She's quite a lady, and I appreciate all that she has done.
Being a representative of a district and a city and championing a cause like this, that speaks volumes.
I've always been into sustainability. This would go back to the first term of Shirley Franklin. Oh my goodness. We applied for a grant from Dell Computers for $10,000. They said, collect all the computers, the used computers, printers, back then people were not even throwing their cell phones away. So it was really computers. Get it back to us. They gave us $10,000 to get it back to Dell Computers. And then they were going to properly dispose of them by taking the plastic, the glass, all the little parts and taking it apart and then recycling all the parts that are inside a computer. And I loved that. And Cheryl loved it.
I got the word out by just going to all our neighborhood associations. I mean, literally every one of them.
We did it at the Civic Center. That was the very first one. Called for volunteers, and people started showing up.
Actually, my mom passed away in 2006. It was my task for the next couple of years to clean their house out, whether it's paint and chemicals, old clothes, paper shredding. What do you do? So it kind of set me on a mission with this. At the time, the City of Atlanta's recycling manager was Mary Harrington, and I came down to see her, what would you suggest I do? Because really, I had no intention of doing this myself. It was more of City of Atlanta, what do people do? So she eventually hooked me up with Carla Smith.
When Peggy came to us in the beginning, we did our very first hazardous waste. They were having an eco convention out at Atlantic Station. But then I got to know the Braves. Steve Smith worked for Turner Broadcasting. And so he introduced me to Mike Plant. Mike Plant was over the stadium. We needed a parking lot. And we asked him, we said, can we use your parking lot? After that, we had met David with electronic waste locally. We didn't have to pay a truck to add to the carbon footprint to drive it all the way to Austin, Texas. So we started doing our electronic events at Turner Field.
Carla being Carla, we always tell anybody, the volunteers or anybody else, you have to have good shoes on and so on and so forth. Stuff's heavy, blah, blah, blah. Here comes Carla walking up with flip-flops. That was kind of an ongoing joke every year after that. I feel that she really grew the awareness. She helped us grow it, for electronics.
We started off with the computers and the tires. The tires, Lord have mercy.
What we loved about the Tau chapter of Omega Sci-Fi was that they really embraced the sustainability of all of this.
We spread the word within the other organizations, fraternities and sororities.
I sat down with Councilmember Smith, and it was like, it's crazy to continue to do these events once a year at this cost, when at this cost we could have a permanent facility. Long story short, we were able to lease property from, at that time it was the Department of Public Works, and Carla was, here, we're here, let's go. And that was the creation of Charm. 2015, when we opened, we had 5,000 people the entire year. Last year we had over 35,000, and it was COVID, as well as we're only open 3 days a week.
Charm is a nonprofit. They do it with a very little help from the city and a whole lot of help from our communities. So I want to thank the people that utilize Charm, but I really want to thank the people that donate to Charm.
You have to leave the place better than when you got here.
It's been a journey and a challenge that without Councilmember Smith, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today.
She cared about the environment and finding a way for her people to dispose of this stuff properly. instead of it just being on the side of the road.
She's been a true servant leader for the district and the city, and we appreciate her so much. Thank you.
1:30, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Finance Executive Committee. Today is Wednesday, April 28th, 2021. It's 1:30. I'm Jennifer Ide, the chair of the Finance Executive Committee. With me today are council members J.P. Matsakite, Howard Shook, Andre Dickens, Joyce Shepard, and Matt Westmoreland. Is there anybody else, any other members who are on the line? I think that would be Councilmember Archibald, who we're don't have yet, but I think she will be joining us. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting. Shook is, yeah, I got Shook, I think. I said Matsakite, Shook, Dickens, Shepard, Westmoreland.
Okay, well, not so fast, because I've since been knocked off.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we had some technology challenges in transportation this morning as well. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order, and I think Councilmember Archibald will join us when she gets here. And Ms. Kempson-Wright, will you read the remote meeting statement, please? Oh, and I've been told Councilmember Archibald is with us as well.
I am, thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair. This Finance Executive Committee meeting is being conducted remotely as advertised and as in accordance with the official code of Georgia 5014-1. The meeting will be conducted in conformance with Robert's Rules of Order and the Rules of Council as authorized by the City Code. The public may access the meeting by the following conference bridge, toll-free access 877-579-6743, conference ID 831-599-1256, which is noted on the Friday, April 23rd public meeting notice. The public may also view the meeting on channel 26, citycouncil.atlantaga.gov, or the council's YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter pages via @ATL Council. All presentations are available on the Atlanta City Council Finance Executive Committee presentation page. The agenda was published and made available on Friday, April 23rd via atlantacity.ga.iqm2.com. Public comment was accepted between the hours of 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. on yesterday, Tuesday, April 27th. All persons present on the remote council meeting conference bridge are requested to mute your phones and speakers. Additionally, speakers must be acknowledged by the presiding officer prior to speaking. Each council member is requested to open your Outlook email and minimize the screen. Amendments, substitutes, and informational documents were distributed to committee members earlier, and we thank you all in advance for your cooperation.
Thank you, Ms. Kempson-Wright. So we need to adopt our agenda, but first we need to amend it to add the first read of our fiscal year 2022 proposed budget, which is ELMS 23882. I'll also note we do have two papers that came out of transportation this morning also that'll be on our agenda, which is 21-0-0194 and 21-0-0195. So I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to add the walk-in.
Shook seconds.
All right, let's open the vote.
I'm voice voting. My system is down, so I'm voice vote voting. This is Shepard. Yay.
Okay.
Archibald, yay.
All right, that's we need to add Shepard to the list, and then that'll be 7 yeses, 0 no's on the amendment. I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended once we get, yeah, there's the 7. So motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Second, Shook.
All right. Councilmember Archibald?
Yeah.
Okay.
The vote is open.
All right. Can you put Shepard as a yes?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. All right. That the agenda has been adopted. 7 yeses, 0 no's. Make a motion to approve our minutes.
Second, Archibong.
You open the vote.
Shepherd, yes.
Vote open.
All right, 7 yeses, 0 no's. Our minutes have been adopted, approved. We do have just a few public comments, so let's move to section F of our public comments now.
Greetings to you committee members and staff, and special greetings to you citizens and voters of Atlanta who have tuned into these proceedings and who are taking note of the degree to which public comments made by citizens are being respected. Ben Howard, Senior Advocate, Public Policy Analyst. Neighborhood Planning Unit R allows no committee report other than that of the Undercover Zoning Committee, and especially wards off any reports dealing with finance. But let's talk finance, MPUR 9. Let's talk about why you will not allow changes to the Comprehensive Development Plan to be placed on the MPUR agenda. Let's talk finance, MPUR 9. Let's talk about the millions of dollars developers stand to reap from the Atlanta Housing Authority plans to sell and lease its properties, land which the public has been led to believe was to help increase affordable housing. Let's talk finance, MPUR 9. Let's talk about short-term rentals and why there is no conversation about the degree to which short-term rentals impact our city's affordable housing stock. Let's talk finance, MPUR 9. Let's talk about why you are supporting non-affordable housing with price points greater than $300,000. Let's talk finance, MPUR 9. Let's talk about why you allow no conversation about all of the situations related to watershed management. Let's talk finance, MPUR 9. Let's talk about the money being discussed to fight carjackings and other crimes using cameras and license plate recorders in other parts of our city, but not in ours. Let's talk finance, MPUR 9. Let's talk about why you will allow no financial reports about the Cascade Nature Preserve or about Adams Park. Let's talk about why Ricardo Jacobs is not giving financial reports as a representative for the Campbellton Road Tax Allocation District, and no reports on Invest in Southwest Atlanta program. So let's talk finance in 2021. On behalf of the citizens of NPUR, you Vice Chair Anthony Robinson, and you Carlos Clare, and you Ricardo Jacobs, and you Alfred White, and you Renetto Scott, and you Allison Hathaway, and you Sherry Williams, and you Cheryl Brown, and you NPUR 9 cohorts and supporters. Let's talk finance.
Hi, my name is Emily Wang, and I would like to oppose the annexation of 2011 and 2015 Memorial Drive. Thank you. Have a good one.
My name is Max Meehan, and I strongly oppose the annexation of 2011 and 2015 Memorial Drive. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Hi, my name is Morgan Lee, a resident of Memorial Drive, and I oppose the annexation of 2011 and 2015 Memorial Drive. Vehemently opposed. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nora Artunian. I'm reaching out to you to share my concerns regarding item 21-0-0001, which is an ordinance led by Councilmember Archibong to annex 2011 and 2015 Memorial Drive Southeast into the City of Atlanta. What's not mentioned in the ordinance is that the next step after the annexation would be for Empire Communities to require further rezoning in the hopes of building phase 2 of their paint box townhomes on that site. Their phase 1 is across the street at 2012 Memorial Drive. I'm a resident of Parkview, which is the neighborhood that would be impacted by any annexation or changes to this land. And unfortunately, despite the fact that we would be primarily impacted, nobody from City of Atlanta or Empire Communities has communicated to us what the plans are. We had to find this out by members of the Kirkwood Neighborhood Association telling us, because they felt it was important. I think the key things are that this land just being annexed on its own seems very strange. I don't know if there's any precedent for a small pocket to be annexed this way. Also, there's a single-family home owned by Melissa Macbeth who would essentially be an island surrounded by other annexed land, and she would eventually be living surrounded by townhomes, which I think would definitely impact her home value and her own quality of life. Other things to consider is that the Memorial Corridor is becoming more and more dangerous. This would no doubt add more traffic and congestion if the townhomes are developed there. And while I support the continued development and housing opportunities in our neighborhood, it is my position that this land should not be annexed and is better suited for single-family homes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. This is John McCauley. I'd like to address the annexation of property from DeKalb County into the City of Atlanta, the address of 211 Memorial Drive and 215 Memorial Drive. I'm opposed to the annexation of this property and would ask the Finance Committee to deny this annexation. The reason we would like to ask for you to deny this property is that while it's currently zoned for single-family residents, the builders clearly made their intent to come in 1 year later and build townhomes on this property. If they build townhomes on this property, then there are one single-family house and a single-family lot that both border on Memorial. It's 213 Memorial and 217 Memorial. The single-family home would literally be surrounded on all four sides by townhomes. Townhomes across the street, townhomes to the south, to the north, townhomes to the east, and townhomes to the west. It is not in city zoning practices to take a single-family home and surround it by townhomes on all four sides. There have been studies done that want to increase density along Memorial Drive. Not a single one of those studies recommends that you take a single-family residence, a family home, detached, and surround it on all four sides by townhomes. We ask that you deny this application to annex the property. Thank you very much.
Hey, my name is James McBeth. I'm opposed to the annexation of 2011 Memorial Drive and 2015 Memorial Drive. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Melissa Macbeth. I'd like to oppose the case, ordinance, what have you, 21-0-0001, 14 in parentheses, the move to annex 2011 and 2015 Memorial Drive into the city. Thank you.
Is that the end of our public comment? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Before we get to the next section, G, our presentations and reports, we do have one, we have a communication for an appointment where the appointee is with us today. So I want to jump to H so that Ms. Ware is able to introduce herself and speak to us before we have our 5 presentations. So if that's all right with everybody, we're going to move to H, communications, item number 1, which is 21C0046, which is a communication from council members Dustin Hillis, District 9, Andrea L. Boone, District 10, Marcy Collier Overstreet, District 11, Joyce M. Shepard, District 12, and Andre Dickens, Post 3 at large, appointing Ms. Kathy Ware to serve as a member of the Westside Affordable Housing Trust Fund Commission. This appointment is for a term of 2 years. So if we can make sure that Ms. Ware is on the line and can come off of mute, I'll just ask you, Ms. Ware, if you will briefly introduce yourself. I know you've been in real estate for a long time, but just give us a little bit about your background and why you are interested and willing to serve on the Westside Affordable Housing Trust Fund Commission.
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Thanks for having me. I apologize up front for my voice. I have a cold. Excuse me. So I will try to get through this as best as I can. So yes, you do have my resume. Thank you guys for reviewing it. Just a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Atlanta. I'm married for about 38 years. I have 2 children, Kevin and Christy. 2 grandchildren, Kevin and Leon. He's responsible for this cold I have, but he's too cute to blame, so we'll let him be. I'm an avid tennis player, life member of Georgia State University, alumna, very, very proud of that. We're up and coming. Member of several organizations. Excuse me. Hold on. The cough. Sorry about that. So member of several organizations where servant leadership is what we do. As my resume states, I've certainly been a serial entrepreneur for about 3 decades.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And if you just let us know, what your interest is in the serving on the trust fund commission, and we always appreciate people who are willing to give their time to the city for these important undertakings.
Oh, absolutely, and of course.
Whoops, we may have lost Ms. Ware. Ms. Ware, are you with us? All right, we might be having a technical difficulty. I apologize, Ms. Ware, if you can't speak, but I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve the confirmation.
Shook seconds.
All right, let's open the vote.
Aye, Shepherd.
Vote is open.
Yes. Okay, yes, Archibald.
All right, this item is favorable, 7 yeses, 0 no's. Thank you so much, Ms. Ware, for agreeing to serve. Thank you for being with us today, even with your cold and cough, and I hope you feel better. And the clerk's office will reach out to you for the next steps of being sworn in to the commission. We're going to back up to our presentations. And let's hear first, if they are ready, from Mr. Jordan and Mr. McCraney on our General Assembly legislative update.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. This is Jerome Jordan. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. As I mentioned, I'm Jerome Jordan, Deputy Chief of Staff to the Mayor. With me also are Reese McCraney and Walter Benton, who made up our Intergovernmental Affairs team this session. First, I wanted to say thank you for allowing me to present today, and also thank you for allowing us to give presentations throughout the session to FEC. You should have received a presentation, a short presentation that we have related to the Georgia General Assembly. If you have it, starting on page 2, we'll just give sort of, I know you have a lot of reports on today's agenda, so we'll move to be succinct and give an overview of some of the bills that passed and have been signed into law, some that are passed are awaiting the governor to take action on them, and then other bills that didn't pass but are still alive for next year's session. With that, we begin on page 2 of the presentation. Just a few things to note. As many of you know, the General Assembly convened on Monday, January 11th. Crossover day was Monday, March 8th. And the last day of session was March 31st, Wednesday, March 31st. The governor has 40 consecutive days from the end of the session to act on all legislation passed out of the General Assembly. I calculate that to be around, I believe, May 10th. But we are starting to see some action on some of the bills, and we expect in the next few days and next week to receive more information on bills that are either signed or vetoed, signed into law or vetoed. Can we move to page 3? A couple of bills that were signed and have been signed into law that I think are of note. One, the members of the committee and council are already aware of SB 202, sponsored by Senator Max Burns, related to voting and some of the changes they made related to voting. One thing to note on that, the city joined the chorus of many who spoke out against these election efforts, including SB 202 and some of the other bills that they were considering, including the city council, who passed 2 resolutions voicing their opposition to it. And I just wanted to express my appreciation for the city council moving on those resolutions. Another bill that's recently signed into law is HB 317, I believe was signed yesterday. This was sponsored by Representative Stevens. It's a short-term rental, essentially sort of an Airbnb, VRBO tax. I know the city council also passed legislation earlier this year related to short-term rentals. So I believe the law department has reviewed, or maybe still continue to review, HB 317 and how it affects city council's legislation. And with that, we will move to page 4, and with Reese McCraney will begin the update on bills that have been passed but are awaiting governor's action.
Great. Thank you, Jerome, and good afternoon, Madam Chair and council members. On page 4, you will see that we are in bills that we are awaiting the governor's action. First local bill up was sponsored by Representative B. Wynn. This is essentially modernizing the Atlanta Urban Enterprise Act. This is an act that initially came into effect in the 1980s, so this was really to just kind of bring this up to speed with our current needs around workforce housing, HB 757. General bills, HB 150, sponsored by Representative Bruce Williamson. That is a preemptive measure from prohibiting certain types of energy sources, so that is awaiting the governor's signature as well. HB 98, sponsored by Representative Eddie Lumsden. This bill actually would grant local authorities, governments, the authority to hold virtual public hearings, which is something obviously that we're interested in. And then HB 134, sponsored by Representative Victor Anderson, would create an exemption under the Open Meetings and Open Records Act for cybersecurity discussions and documents in executive session. So we will update you all as soon as we know that these have been signed. But now I'll move on to Walter. Walter, are you there?
It's possible that he's been muted. What I'll do is I'll begin on page 5, and if he's able to, if he's unmuted, I'll call on him for. Are you there, Walter?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Proceed.
Okay, sorry about that. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the council. I will be continuing on for the bills that are awaiting the governor's action. On slide 5, general bills, Senate Bill 32, sponsored by Senator Brass, so exempting unlisted telephone numbers, personal cell numbers from open records. Senate Bill 236, also sponsored by Senator Brass, allowing no more than 2 mixed drinks containing up to 3 ounces of liquor to be sold per adult entree for off-premise consumption, sort of a mixed drink to-go bill, as it was known. Under crime and public safety, HB 534, which is the governor's bill for street racing. This is sponsored by Representative Josh Bonner. HB 479, sponsored by Bert Reeves. This is the bill that would repeal and replace the 150-year-old citizens arrest statute. And HB 286, sponsored by Representative Gaines, is a prohibition on police department budget cuts. And I'll pass it now to Jerome.
Thank you, Walter. Let's proceed to page 6. On this, we'll cover some of the bills that were not passed in this session, but we will continue to monitor for next session. Some of the bills were simply introduced, as you will see. First bill, HB 328, sponsored by Representative Martin Montahan, is calls for reduction of right-of-way fees owed to cities. Of course, this is one that we would have concerns about. Thankfully, it did not move this session, but we will continue to review. HB 713, sponsored by Representative Dempsey. It's called Reducing Street Homelessness Act of 2021. They had just, I believe, a subcommittee hearing about it this session, but there were concerns voiced by those who have concerns that this bill doesn't adequately address some of the issues related to homelessness, and in fact would cause some problematic issues related to it. HB 843, this is a City of Atlanta bill. It's sponsored by Representative Holland. This is in our legislative package. This is to allow the city to create a property tax deferral legislation for low-income individuals. This was introduced, and we'll be working with the sponsor in the interim on the legislation to see if there's anything we need to do to improve it or modify it, and hopefully push through it for next session. HB 854 is sponsored by Representative Todd Jones. As you may have heard, this was introduced at the very end of session on Sani Die to create Buckhead City. This is just placed in the House hopper, not assigned to the committee yet. But we've been very clear that we're against any efforts to create a separate city of Buckhead, as Buckhead is a valuable member of the city, and we will continue to monitor this bill or any other effort related to Buckhead. A couple other bills I wanted to quickly also note that did not pass this session: SB 266, HB 276, and I think there are some others too that were related to transgender athletes in school. Those did not pass. And I remember Councilmember Dickens previously also requested information related to minimum wage bills. We continue to monitor those. Just a few of note, but HB 116, HB 499, and SB 24, these did not move as well. And then I'll turn it back to Walter to continue this section of the presentation on slide 7.
Thank you, Jerome. And on slide 7, under bills that we'll continue to monitor, starting with some airport bills. HB 477, this was sponsored by Sam Watson. This bill was brought up on the last day of Sine Die. It was amended to remove the jet fuel tax credit for airlines. This passed in the House but did not reach final passage in the Senate. However, we will monitor this, as Jerome said, in the next session in 2022, excuse me. Then there's HB 269. These are HB 269, HB 151, HB 652, and HB 643. They're related to airport taxing airport property. These were introduced respectively by Representative Glanton and Representative Bernal of Clayton County. Under crime and public safety, HB 368. This was sponsored by Representative Ballinger. This would give GBI, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, would be the primary law enforcement agency for investigating certain deaths. SB 115, sponsored by Senator Robinson, speed enforcement in school zones. This failed in the Senate floor. This would allow APD to implement speed enforcement safety devices. Also, and SB 133 and HB 233, this was legislation on ban on no-knock warrants submitted by Senator Davenport and Representative Beverly. I'll now move to slide 8, which talks about study committees. There were 2 that we're going to monitor over the summer. HR 222, sponsored by Representative Anderson. This is House Study Committee on Annexation. This will be focused on annexation dispute procedures. And SR 84, sponsored by Senator Tyler Harper. This is a joint study committee on airport infrastructure and improvement. This is geared, as it was explained, geared toward general aviation and small airports in the state of Georgia. And I'll give it back to Jerome.
Thank you, Walter. So just to wrap up as far as session goes, I wanted to thank council members on this committee and on council who reached out throughout session to present information, share information, or insight that they received. It's very well appreciated. I also want to thank the members of the Government Affairs team, Walter, Reese, and Gabby, Sanders Slade, and also the city department, who were quick to provide information during session on bills. In fact, we had some department staff that we had to reach out to, I think 10 or 11 o'clock at night on Tiny Die, and they were quick to be responsive, so I appreciate that. And then lastly, I just want to say, as we go through next year's session, we'll continue to work on items that are in our legislative package. But House Bill 757, as Reese pointed out, to local legislation sponsored by B. Wynn, was in our package, and it was passed, and we await governor's action on that. And with that being said, I look forward to any questions that you all have.
Thank you very much. It looks like Mr. Westmoreland has his hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. One request and one question. Can you please email a copy of HB 854 to the committee?
Definitely.
Okay. And it was only introduced in the House. There had been some commentary that a senator had introduced a similar bill, but the only one that actually got introduced was the Jones bill.
Correct. That is my understanding. And on the Jones bill 854, he was the only name that's shown as sponsor if you look in the General Assembly system.
Okay, thanks. And then my question is, it's my understanding that a piece of legislation passed this session, as it has in the past, that would break the century-old tradition of the city's boundaries growing coterminously with the school systems, or rather APS's boundaries growing coterminously with the cities, and that the last time it passed, the governor vetoed it. What conversations, if any, have you all had with anyone about what may or may not happen to that bill over the next few weeks?
Thank you for that question. I believe you're referring to, I believe it's SB 209. I know there's been a lot of attention paid to it by both sides on the issue. Those in DeKalb County, those Fulton County, Atlanta Public Schools. We're still waiting, just like others, to see what the governor decides on that action. If it's to see whether he will sign or veto. So we're still monitoring. We'll ask around to see if we learn anything more. But at this point, I have nothing new to report on that one.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That's it for me, Madam Chair.
On the, it was the Buckhead legislation that you wanted a copy of, Mr. Westmoreland?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We will look for that and just keep us updated when things make their way through the governor's office. All right, we're going to move on to our second presentation. Is from the Department of Human Resources, their quarterly update from Commissioner Norman. we have the commissioner with us? Ms. Kempson, Mike, can you tell us Commissioner Norman is on the line? Oh, there you go. Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Ide and members of the Finance Executive Committee. Jeffrey Norman, Interim Commissioner with the Department of Human Resources. Want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to provide the quarterly report on behalf of the Department of Human Resources. And so we like to take a brief opportunity to provide you a summary of some of the high points during the last quarter and some of our current efforts as well. At the outset, we'd just like to also take the opportunity to recognize all of the hard work that the employees within the Department of Human Resources have managed to continue to provide in a seamless manner during the course of this pandemic and our mandatory telework deployment. We could go to slide 3. And so just here on slide 3 provided an overview of some of the major topics that just want to briefly touch on and provide some information to the council about our ongoing efforts here in the city. If we can go to slide 6. And so as we have previously discussed in our prior quarterly updates, the city continues to keep its primary focus on slowing the spread of the COVID-19 vaccine. And as part of those efforts to the community, as well as our workforce, we have ensured that we have continued to provide up-to-date information that represents the guidance that has been issued by medical professionals, and that is in line with our current operating environment. The city, and as I'm sure all of you are aware, as of Thursday, March 25th of 2021, all adult Georgia residents are currently eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. You may remember at the onset of vaccine distribution, there was a tiered distribution method within the state of Georgia. So on the front end of that process, there was primary focus on ensuring that our public safety personnel did have the opportunity to receive an opportunity to get the vaccine. As that process continued, there was a move away from that tiered system, which is why now all employees as of March 25th are eligible to receive that vaccine. As you see here noted, while we do have concentrated efforts to make sure that there are appropriate vehicles, I just show here as well that obviously, as has been widely reported, vaccinations are available at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and those are available on an appointment basis as well as a non-appointment basis. And there are extended hours that will allow for most people to be able to fit that into their schedule from early morning, I think, to as late as 10 in the evening. We can go to slide 7. As we continue with ensuring and monitoring the state of affairs within not only the state of Georgia, but the city of Atlanta proper, we continue our efforts to ensure that we are prepared from a facilities and operations planning standpoint. And so we have requested that all departments and agencies make sure that as part of that focus, that they actually have developed written plans that really continue to focus on facility needs as part of that resumption of work. and to ensure that as part of that analysis, that they are taking a very close look at staffing once we do exit the mandatory telework deployment, and also making sure that they have given appropriate thought to any permanent COVID-related operational changes, whether that be continuation of virtual services or how those will also be integrated with in-person public-facing services once we do reach phase 5 of our reopening plan. We can move to the next slide. And so did want to remind the council as well as the public that, you know, early on, the City of Atlanta put significant work into through the work of the Advisory Council on Reopening Atlanta that kind of set forth the guidelines that would ultimately make and guide how and when we resume services so that we would have an actual informed basis for making those decisions. And so we see that that is a 5-phase reopening plan. Just for information purposes, based on the current metrics and trends, as of my last update, the city is in phase 2, and we will continue to provide updates relative to any shift forward to phase 3, 4, and 5. We can go to the next slide. As I mentioned earlier, as part of the facility and operations planning, we are primarily focused on making sure that we have plans for phase 4 and phase 5. And under phase 4, that is the phase upon which some essential and non-essential facilities and programs will be able to open. But the primary trigger for phase 4 is when non-mission critical employees will start to return to the workplace. And phase 5 obviously culminating in the return of those employees who will not be taking advantage of optional telework deployment. And that is when we would be subject to reopening city facilities citywide. We can go to the next slide. And so we previously reported, I think at our prior quarterly meeting, about the revision of the city's telework policies and the telework agreement, as well as making we ensured that appropriately complemented the acceptable use of assets policies for the city. And so I think, you know, the main takeaway here is that as part of the pandemic response, we clearly had mission critical employees who continued to physically report so that they could continue to provide those mission critical services on behalf of the City of Atlanta. The rest of our non-mission critical employees have been deployed in a mandatory telework environment. Once we shift into phase 4 of the reopening, we will shift from that mandatory directed telework program to an optional telework program. And that is where departments and agencies will have the opportunity to evaluate their staff and make a determination as to whether or not some of those functions and some of those personnel are suited to continue either in a full optional telework deployment or whether or not there will be hybrid performance, meaning that those individuals will perform in a hybrid method, some of those duties in a telework capacity and some of those duties physically on site, you know, at the city facility. And clearly one of those things and one of the major points for consideration, we recognize and are excited about the opportunity with phase 5 as we reopen facilities to ensure that we have effective staff and procedures and retrofitted facilities to ensure that we can maximize service delivery to the public. We can go to the next slide. And so just wanted to touch on some of the continuing efforts that HR has focused on while we have been in this mandatory telework deployment. Just wanted to share with you that the Department of Human Resources has launched a new career portal. And so definitely encourage those of you who have not had an opportunity to go and view that new career portal, to please take a direct look at that. And so this is obviously to serve a continued purpose on making sure we supplement our recruiting efforts to make it as easy as possible and to streamline the process for onboarding individuals. And so we encourage folks to go to that talent page. You know, there are mechanisms there that will allow folks to sign up so they can actually get notices for those types of jobs that they may be interested in. And so we're really excited about all of the positive feedback that we have gotten from applicants and for those folks who've had an opportunity to utilize the career portal up to date. We can go to the next slide, which is slide 12. And so in addition to the new career portal, did also want to just take an opportunity to highlight you know, our partnership with the LinkedIn platform. And so, you know, we are once again able to leverage that enormous platform, which consists of over 500 million members in over 200 countries. And what that does is allow, once again, you know, to expand the online brand for the city of Atlanta. It allows us to find the right candidates faster. And part of that is also being able to leverage that platform to also identify passive candidates that we may want to recruit here to the city of Atlanta. And it also creates, you know, an existing talent pipeline that we're able to manage. Thus far, we have been very successful in seeing the results of this partnership through several hires. And, you know, examples, there are positions that the Department of Aviation that we've been able to fill, customer service rep positions through 311. We have, you know, seen code enforcement officers through that. And, you know, another example, we onboarded recently an Excel system administrator that we identified through that LinkedIn recruiting process as well. So we're glad to have that opportunity to ensure that, especially in this virtual environment, we can continue to leverage these platforms to ensure that we continue to identify well-versed candidates to continue to move forward with our mission here at the city. We can go to the next slide, which is slide 13. Also wanted to report, I think that most folks are aware about the Hire Atlanta Youth Initiative. And so our talent acquisition group and organizational development group is partnering with the Mayor's One Atlanta office on this initiative to provide work experience and professional development training during summer of 2021. And so that we have identified, you know, through the Camp Best Friends program and leveraging through watershed aviation and fire opportunities, as well as partnerships within the Atlanta community that will move that initiative forward. So we're excited about that as well. We can move to the next slide, which is slide 14. Did want to take a moment once again to just provide, you know, accolades for our employee assistance program employees and counselors who have really stepped up during this pandemic, as well as to address a lot of the anxiety and stress that has resulted from a lot of the local as well as national unrest throughout the country. And so most recently, we continue to push out additional resources, not only through the virtual environment, but an in-person environment, as we have lots of folks who are experiencing stress and anxiety, not only relative to the pandemic, but those national issues such as the recent Derek Chauvin verdict. And so we continue to also provide direct support to our public safety agencies. And one of the accomplishments there is that EAP staff has been able to visit with pretty much the entire broad spectrum of both of those agencies, because as you would imagine, with all of the extra duties and extra efforts and all of the unique circumstances during these times, there has been an elevated, need there for folks to have that support mechanism. So we continue to move forward to make sure that we provide those appropriate resources from a staffing perspective and also from a support perspective that's consistent with the ability of those employees to be effectively engaged. We can go to the next slide, which is slide 15. And so we had previous conversations with this committee as well as the council during the latter part of last year as we move forward with the open enrollment process and the renewal of the city's health care benefits. And so as you're aware of this, we will be moving forward with an RFP for healthcare benefits that would go into effect for the calendar year of 2022. And so as we have previously discussed with that committee, we did engage a consultant, legal consultant, who is in the process of completing their OPEB analysis. We anticipate that we will have the results of that analysis to share hopefully in mid-May with this committee, and that we will be able to have discussions to any recommended changes for the benefit year for January 22. Relative to the RFP itself, we have hired a separate consultant who is assisting us with completing the benefits RFP. We anticipate that RFP will be ready to go live in June based on the timeline, and I can provide you with a more detailed timeline, but just in an overall summary, we anticipate that based on that timeline that we currently have in place, that we will be bringing forth legislation with the successful proponents to council in mid-August, and obviously looking to stay on track to communicate any changes and be able to engage with the workforce as well about any of those changes prior to the open enrollment period in the fall. We can go to the next slide. And we can actually go to slide 17. And so as part of our normal metrics, we have provided you with the current head count as of March 31st of 2021, so you can kind of see the breakdown and the percentages there. Just wanted to note, as previously noted, because I know there is sometimes confusion, this number is representative of the FTE counts, not only for the general fund, but also enterprise funds, trust, and grant-funded positions. So this is the citywide workforce population. We can go to the next slide. And the next slide just kind of breaks that down citywide relative to the employee count. And you can have an opportunity to review that as well. And we can go to the last slide. And obviously, now that we are in preparation for the FY22 budget, we are working on preparation for the FY22 personnel paper. And so we also look forward to bringing that forth and having discussions with this committee and the council relative to FY22 anticipated transactions during the course of next month. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Norman. It looks like Councilmember Matzkite has his hand up.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And thank you, Mr. Norman, for your presentation. I had a couple of questions. One, what's our current vacancy rate at the city?
And so I can get you those actual statistics, separately. And so, what I will share with you is that, that as we went through FY21 for personnel, that the focus obviously was on those positions that were funded. And as part of the process that we engaged with the Vacancy Review Board, we obviously coordinate with the Department of Finance to ensure that the focus remains on whether or not departments have adequate funding prior to approval of any hiring or onboarding of individuals. But we do have that data separate, especially as we prepare for FY22 budget. So yeah, I can provide you some more detail on that offline.
All right, that's great. And can you just share? So, did that explanation mean? What did that mean about our vacancy rate? Is it going up because we're not filling positions? Is it remaining the same? Can you give me just some a glimpse into what the general trend is?
Yeah, I think in the general trend, we are not seeing an elevated vacancy rate here at the city. We have obviously continued to focus on mission critical hiring. As I think you're aware, there have been some targeted analysis done relative, for example, to recruitment and retention efforts within the police department, where the advisory committee who looked at that has come back with some recommendations on how to make sure that we can appropriately here at the city ensure that we are able to actively be able to deal with and balance any attrition within that department. But otherwise, even when we look at those departments such as public works and others where there tends to be ongoing normal attrition, those are continuous recruiting associated with those positions, so that has not become elevated. So it's still within the normal boundaries for vacancies.
Gotcha. Okay. The next question is really on your slide 15 with regard to the OPEB and the health benefits RFP. On the OPEB, did I interpret this correctly that you're going to be able to come back to this committee or members of this committee mid-May with recommendations? Is that accurate?
That is correct. And so we should, at that point, we should have the slate of recommendations and the report back from the external consultant, so that we can kind of share those results as well as any recommendations that have come out of that analysis. That is correct.
Yeah. I think that will be really important because, in preparation for this meeting, I had a preview with the finance department of, what the budget might be for next year. And I think on a preliminary basis, the group health insurance overall was going up significantly more than what the revenues were anticipated to go up. A double-digit kind of growth rate versus 2-3%. So, I think it's going to be very important for us to really look at this and be sure that we're competitive, but also financially competitive to be sure that we can support these benefits. That also obviously goes for the other health benefits. And we ran out of time last year to feel like we could communicate any changes to our employee population. And so I'd ask, and Ms. Kimson-Wright, if you can capture this, I'd really like to ask that you come back to this committee with a pretty, with a specific schedule as to when you think we will get these various pieces of information on the RFP, and when we will have a decision. You said a August date for legislation, but when would we communicate potential changes to our employees and making sure that we give them enough time? So if you could develop that schedule and come back to this committee so that we know what that would be very helpful. I guess that wasn't really a question for you to answer, but just to follow up on. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Metz. Mr. Westmoreland, had you had your hand up?
Yeah, I did, and then I got knocked off. I was going to follow up on Mr. Mascot's question about vacancy rates and ask if the commissioner could come back by the end of the meeting and share that data with us.
Okay, we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Westmoreland. I would think that would be pretty readily available since we are moving into the budget season, and we have, started to do some projections for next year. So I would hope we could, you could get your fingers on those numbers pretty quickly. If there aren't any more questions for Mr. Norman right now, let's move into we have 3 finance-related presentations and reports. So let's move on to the 5-year financial plan. Can we get our finance team off mute and up and running?
Okay. Madam Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Yep, you're online.
All right, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity for us to provide the mandatory 5-year plan. We're going to kick this off with Ms. Wilson. She's going to open it up, and then we will proceed through the presentation. Ms. Wilson?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, if we can move to slide 2, just to introduce the 5-year plan. Of course, this is covering FY22 to 26. We use this as a long-term financial planning tool, and also to develop strategies for long-term sustainability of our city services, objectives, and any financial challenges that we have before us. You all may recall that this was required via resolution that was adopted back in 2009 as the 5-year stabilization plan. We'll move to slide number 3. This gives you kind of a one-page overview, executive summary of our FY22 to 26 projected revenues and expenses. And starting with FY22, our projected revenues are at $645.3 million. This is general fund. And you will see that we grow that to $736.5 million in 2026. I will say that some background on how we derived our projected revenues. You all may recall that we engaged with Deloitte via task order to do 2 things. One was to work with us through FY22 budget revenue projections, and part 2 was to also assist with a 5-year forecast on the revenues. Again, they came in as they did last year, working through the impacts of COVID and bringing in some of their economists and experts to work with us in those projections. So the projections that you see on revenues are consistent with the collaborative work effort with Deloitte. On the expense side, you'll see that FY22's projected expenses are $706.8 million. This leaves a gap of about $61.5 million. So we are positioned to utilize about $53 million in American Rescue Plan funds to cover that gap, and about $8.3 million in building permit committed fund balance to alleviate that shortfall. The remainder of the projected expenses continue to include our base assumptions of 1 year of police raises, 2 years still of fire raises, and of course the increased costs in healthcare benefits, as well as increases in OPEB and pensions. The next couple of slides, Ms. Daniel, our revenue chief, will go through revenues, and our budget chief will go through the expenses. I'll turn it over to Ms. Daniel.
Good afternoon, council members. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Thank you very much. The slide before you will show the general fund revenue 5-year forecast by major category for years FY22 through FY26. As Ms. Wilson just mentioned, finance leveraged the expertise of Deloitte Consulting as a purposeful and strategic due diligence exercise to ensure that the city's 5-year plan is as refined as possible and uses the most current economic information available. Much of the commentary that I will present with you today is included in Deloitte City of Atlanta revenue forecast adjusted for COVID-19 presentation that was sent to you by the CFO's office earlier this week. As is traditional in finance, a conservative forecasting approach is adopted because we are ever mindful that assumptions that we build into a forecast in year 1 may absolutely change by year 5, and always subject to the economic uncertainties beyond the city's control. Deloitte's analysis included assumptions for a high, medium, low scenario revenue projections for FY22. The FY22 results in general fund proposed budget adopts the baseline medium forecast for revenues of $645 million. Leading economists predict a return to a more stable budgetary environment in FY23 and beyond. This forecast predicts that licenses, hotel, motel, and fines, the categories that have posed the most risk in the current fiscal year, will materially rebound by FY23. Analysts expect the economy to begin a rebound in late 21 However, there may still be volatility caused by a spike in hospitalizations or a pause in vaccines, but modulated as vaccination rates overall increase and social distancing mandates are eased, etc. The projected revenue growth over the 5-year horizon is about 14% from $645 million in FY22 to $736 million in FY26. Property taxes, public utilities, licenses, and sales tax represent greater than 82% of the general fund and are expected to be stable and experience varying levels of revenue growth over the 5-year horizon. For example, the property tax forecast assumes rising residential real estate value, while commercial real estate is expected to soften in the next 2 years, per our conversation with the tax assessor's office most recently. However, over the 5-year horizon, property tax revenue is expected to grow to 2.29%. Sales tax, which is the most economically sensitive revenue stream with a close correlation to Atlanta retail sales activity, employment, and personal income levels, is expected to trend up as the pandemic ends and consumer confidence is restored, coupled with that pent-up demand, which will result in more sales activity. Sales tax is expected to grow 8% over the 5-year horizon. The most vulnerable categories are not necessarily the largest revenue sources, such as fines. However, in close and at a macro level, all major revenue categories are expected to experience a rebounding financial effect as the pandemic ends and economic drivers such as GDP, employment rates, and consumer spending increase. This is my presentation regarding the 5-year plan for revenue. I yield to your questions at this point, or I can turn it over to Mr. Bales to discuss expenses.
Colleagues, does anybody have questions that they want to ask on the revenue side? I know everybody, I think, got briefed on this beforehand.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Enid. Why don't we let Mr. Bell go, and then if people have questions at the end, we can get to them after the conclusion of the presentation.
All right. Thank you. This is Charles Bell speaking. Can I be heard?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Thank you. Happy to present to you from the expense point of view our outlook for the 5-year plan. As we look at the slide, I'm not sure if it's up yet, but as we look at the slide, the first numerical column gives you the budget for the current fiscal year, which sits at $673.4 million. And then we go into the out years, FY22 through 26. Down the left side of the slide, you'll see the various accounting groups, and I want to skip down to purchase contract services, supplies, capital outlays, and inter-fund, interdepartmental charges, which basically captures our fleet repair and maintenance, fuel expenses, as well as the indirect cost program. But these particular 4 account groups, wanted to say that we took an approach where we utilize the CPI considerations. This is a report entitled The National Outlook. It's a study done by the University of Georgia's Terry College of Business, and the out-year increases are estimated to be about 2.5%. As we looked at that and looked at the numbers, we found that to be very palatable. And so if you wanted to do the math, you can see the movement from year to year. It would be about 2.5%. Now, similarly, as we go down one accounting group to other costs, we did the work on that, and it just coincidentally came in at about 2.4%. So it was just coincidental, one of those things. But we did intentionally stay away from using the CPI on that particular group. You see that those numbers move at a little bit more than $1 million clip per year. Then we go down to debt service. And as we look at debt service, you'll see a little bit of movement there. That was driven by our P&I table. In FY23, we began to see a little bit of a decline as we came to an end. One on our solid waste management bonds, and then two, we had a dip in our GMA loan pool. The two of those added together were about 3.4 plus 2 million for about $5.4 million, for a $5.4 million change downward. And then we had our certificate of participation bonds, as well as our zoo bonds, coming down to a close in FY24 with 3.4 million and about $1.6 million, which got us up to about a $5 million decline. But these were offset to a degree for fiscal years 24, 25, and 26. We've added back in about $6.7 million a year dealing with affordable housing. In the end, as we look at that, it comes out to be about 32.87 at the end of FY26, and it's about a $4 million move as we go from the projected budget of FY22, or should I say the proposed at this point of FY22 going out to 26. The conversion summary, as we look at that, that typically is our reserve category. We're coming into a projected budget, or should I say proposed budget in FY22 of a $2 million reserve. We know we've got to strengthen that, dealing with the pandemic, with revenues being tight, we have to take it down to about $2 million for the upcoming year. But we do have plans to begin to inch it back up, almost a $5 million movement as we go from FY22 to FY23, and we begin to try to inch it up. This is not a situation where we can get it all back in one lump sum. We have to get over the $7.3 million mark in FY26. Other financing uses, there you see us going from 10.49 in the proposed budget for 22 on up to 12.2, almost 12.3 in FY26. Here we're dealing with GMA use, where we're dealing with lease payments for our capital acquisition for vehicles. Typically, what we have there are taking care of our larger departments, fire and police, the larger dollar volume needs for vehicles, and then Parks and Rec, along with the Department of Transportation, coming in right behind them. And then, of course, we have some other departments, but much smaller dollars. And so as we monitor our use of fleet and our needs, we're looking at that to go, again, from about 10.5 to 12.2 to 12.3 in FY26. The bigger part of what's going on here, we'll rotate back up to the top, personnel dollars. The proposed budget coming into here shortly at $465.9, almost might as well say $466 million. Primarily what's driving our analysis on personnel goes to police and fire. I think we're in our last year of the raises that have been going on toward police, and I think fire will have another 2 years after that. We definitely monitored that. We did have get a shot in the arm of another $4 million coming in 22, and then $3 million for fire. This will help us in terms of funding sworn personnel. Typically what we've done over the past few years is where we see positions that are vacant to help balance the budget. We typically defund them. So with those two shots in the arm of $5 million and $4 million respectively for police and fire, it's allowed us to fund positions that we might normally defund. And so we're happy to be able to do that for the upcoming year, and that should play out throughout the remaining years out through FY26. We do realize that obviously police and fire won't be able to hire everybody in the first couple of months. We have taken into consideration a phased-in approach that they can recruit and bring in new personnel. The other thing that we took into consideration is group health. Human Resources came to you and it was voted on in January, 90% renewal. As we're behind just a little bit during the DLA check-in, we added another 6%. Health is 16%, and so that will play out in the upcoming year. I just mentioned about positions being vacant, and we tend to defund them where we can. But also along the lines of that strategy, we look at attrition. Obviously, we have separations throughout the course of a fiscal year, and we're not looking to necessarily backfill each and every position. Because we're in tough times, we've applied the strategy where we're looking at where we would normally fund 100% for salaries and benefits. We may pare it back to 95%. And that, too, is taken into consideration as we go through the years from current going on out. I think I've pretty much covered what I wanted to talk about. I don't know if I failed to mention when we talked about other costs, what's driving that dollar amount, that line item would be post-employment benefit costs. So OPEB, as we relate to it, was the key driving factor there. I think I mentioned that earlier. I'll happily try to answer any questions.
All right, Mr. Masterkite, it looks like you have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Bell, I wanted to go back to something you said. I apologize, but you were cutting in and out a little bit when you're talking about the main driver of fiscal year 22 increase is on the personnel and employee benefits side. Can you tell us what the percentage increase in the police and fire separately their salary would be? And then I think you said that overall benefits were increasing by 16%. If you could confirm that, that'd be helpful.
Okay. Well, I didn't mean to say that if I did. The 16% would apply to health, not pension, life, health, and Medicare. We don't have much movement at all, I guess, between life and Medicare. Pension may be a smidgen, but health is the bigger change. That goes from the 9 plus 7.
Is that retiree health, employee health, both?
No, mostly. Well, when I went down to other costs, I was talking about the OPEB. What I was talking about when we talk about the salaries line item, that's where I was saying some of the things that come into play, and that's when I was trying to make the point about the 16%.
So our health care for our employee population is projected in these numbers to increase 16%. Is that correct? Correct. Now that the 9% is a typical estimate in terms of what we were doing. The 7% is an attempt to come back to bring us out of a deficit position. So we know we can't get it off. Because we haven't been charging what the cost is that correct?
Yes, we're undercharging.
Okay. Do you have a sense of what the police and fire increase line would be?
I would have to, looking through my notes here, I think I'm going to have to call you back, get back to you quickly on that. have it at the top of my.
No problem. If you could just circulate that to the entire committee, that'd be great. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Matzkite. Does anyone else have questions for finance on the 5-year plan? All right, going once, going twice. I will thank you to the finance team for that presentation, and we will be attaching that plan to the legislation that presentation when we get to that later in our meeting. That takes us to our 4th presentation, which is our COVID-19 funds report.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. This is Jerry DeLoes, Director of the Office of Enterprise Risk Management in the Department of Finance. Are you ready for me to proceed?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. On slide 1, there is no change. It's just our cover page. Next slide, please. There's no change in slide 2. Slide 2 is set out our reporting requirements as required by council. Next slide, please. Slide 3 provides an overview of approved funding that has been received by the City of Atlanta and pending funding that has been applied for but has not been received. And in that column, you'll see those 2 grants that are currently under review, and then they were applied for by the Department of Aviation. If you go to the left side of your screen, the approved funding, there is a slight change. We did add state funding for about $69,000. That went toward providing funds for the summer youth program. We had initially thought that they were going to be provided by coronavirus relief funds, but the state provided those funding. Next slide, please. On slide 4, it's an overall breakdown of the obligation and spend that's currently taking place. It sets out the various programs that were authorized by council, and it provides the overview of how much funds are currently available for that. Later on the agenda today, there will be a piece of legislation that reallocates some of the funding, and I'll explain more at that time. But this serves as the basis for us keeping up with how much money is available and how much money is being spent. Next slide, please. Slide 5, a basic breakdown of the funding that has been received by the Department of Aviation. There has been an increase of about $26 million, and that pretty much covers debt service, consultant services, and personnel expenses for those since the last reporting period. Slide 6, please. There's no change in slide 6. It just sets out the requirements that we provide with information related to nonprofit and philanthropic organizations. And just for recap, these were the funds we initially provided at the beginning of the pandemic. Slide 7, please. Slide 7 is the donation summary. The only change in this slide is in fourth quarter of FY21 for the month of April, $14,000 for the donated space that's being used to store some of our PPE. Next slide, please. Slide 8 is the detailed information required by the Ethics Office regarding donations. Slide 9 is a continuation of that. Slide 10 is a continuation of that. And slide 11 is a continuation of that as well. Our next slide is slide 12. It provides a breakdown of all of the spending that has taken place since the last report. Primarily, it represents approximately the overview is $30 million that has been spent for hazardous pay. That is characteristically split almost evenly between FEMA and for money that was allocated by CARES. As it relates to the FEMA portion, we have not submitted that to FEMA for reimbursement yet. It is currently under review, but we will be submitting that to FEMA later this year. The other expenses include expenses that have been paid to Atlanta Development Authority, Fulton County Board of Health, and United Way for the various programs that were assigned to them. And that concludes our report.
Thank you, Mr. Deloach. Any questions on the COVID-19 report? right, seeing none, we're going to move to our final report, which is our monthly general fund revenue update.
Good afternoon, council members. Again, this is Felicia Daniel from the Department of Finance. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. This FY21 monthly general fund revenue report for the month of March is prepared pursuant to 20-R-4006, which requires that Finance provide an update to the Finance Executive Committee at the second regularly scheduled meeting of each month, and reporting shall contain detailed information regarding collections for each of the general fund revenue streams and how collections compare to budgeted revenue. This presentation begins with a listing of the FY21 general fund major revenue categories and their corresponding adopted budget amounts. In total, the FY21 adopted general fund budget is $680 million, which includes a $41 million supplement from fund balance. Next, a comparison of FY21 March projections year-to-date versus FY21 March actuals year-to-date, which represents 9 months of revenue activity. In total, March year-to-date actuals are $520 million, which are lower than year-to-date projections of $552 million by $32 million. An analysis of the major factors that contribute to the overall budget versus actual variance is as follows. Property tax revenue is experiencing a positive variance of $7 million higher than budget. March property tax collections were over $5 million. The year-over-year March comparison reveals that we have collected almost $7 million more this year at $230 million versus $222 million last year, even though this year's due date was a month later. Finance fully expects to achieve the full property tax budget of $232 million over the remaining 3-month horizon. Public utility and alcohol category includes 15 active revenue streams with varying cycles of receipts. Excise tax receipts contribute to the majority of the negative March variance of $5.7 million. Through March, we have recognized receipts of $4 million versus a year-to-date March budget of $9.2 million, which is a $5.2 million negative variance from monthly alcohol-related excise tax receipts, which includes tax by the drink and wholesale alcohol remittances. Local option sales tax continues to trend higher than year-to-date projections by $8 million. Sales tax continues to be a bright spot in general fund revenue collections, despite the challenges of the pandemic. Licenses and permits revenue is lower than year-to-date projections by $34.8 million. The primary drivers are slower alcohol and business licenses received. Through March, the budget for alcohol and business licenses is $51.5 million versus actual revenue of $12.9 million. It is well documented that the restaurant industry has been negatively impacted by COVID. Furthermore, in support of the business community, relief measures are in place to suppress penalty and interest assessments in the short term, which tends to delay payment as businesses utilize this relief measure to manage their cash flow. Business taxes are a function of estimated gross revenues and number of employees. These two factors have been significantly and negatively impacted by COVID. Resulting business tax receipts may be impacted by a lower revenue tax base this year. However, we fully expect to recover most revenues over the remaining calendar year. Other revenues is a category marked by the infrequency or unpredictable timing of receipts and includes accounts such as gain, loss on the sale of investments, which are based on market conditions, interest earnings, miscellaneous receipts, and recoveries, which are remittances governed by another authority over which we have no control, such as state or federal government, thereby making it challenging to anticipate or budget revenue in this category. As of March year to date, this category has recognized revenue from insurance reimbursements and recoveries and sale of assets for abandoned property and other miscellaneous receipts that contribute to a positive budget to actual variance of $4.6 million. Fines and penalties have a negative variance of $4.4 million, which is primarily related to a decrease in parking fine revenue. The year-to-date March budget for parking fines is $5.1 million versus actual parking fine revenue of $457,000. Health and safety measures adopted by both public and private sectors to combat the pandemic, including capacity limitations on bars and restaurants, the closure of facilities to the general public, and the implementation of work from home policies by many employers have resulted in a reduced demand for on-street parking in the city. As such, the city and the service provider recently renegotiated the agreement in recognition that the duration of the impact of these variables is unknown, and after such measures ease or cease altogether, there likely will be an extended period of time before the number of parkers recover to pre-pandemic levels. Hotel motel is a negative variance of $8 million, which is directly related to the depressed demand stemming from COVID. The erosion of business, convention, and tourism activity has reduced demand, hotel occupancy, and thus results in lower room rates, which equates to lower revenue. Economists anticipate this trend will continue until consumer confidence in traveling rebounds. The last two columns compare FY20 March year-to-date actuals to FY21 March year-to-date actuals and show a negative variance of $73 million. Obviously, last year's revenues as of March were not yet impacted by COVID to a high degree and are higher than current year March revenues. This concludes Finance's March revenue report presentation, and I yield to your questions. Thank you.
All right, colleagues, anybody have questions? All right, I'm not seeing any questions. I'm going to assume that people got them answered during their briefings. All right, well, thank you so much to the finance team. I know that was a lot to present today. We appreciate you being here and having those well-organized reports. We are going to jump back up to our, or I guess down, to our not our presentations, I apologize, our communications. We took the one appointment, but item number 2 is where we are. It is 21C0047, a communication from W. Daniel Ebersol, Vice Chair, Audit Committee, submitting the performance, the audit report, liquor licensing, and enforcement. And I know that this actually remains held in public safety, legal administration, but there were some members of this committee who were not on public safety who wanted to go ahead and hear the presentation from the audit committee today. So we won't be taking an action because it's not before us to do that, but we would like to hear the report.
Good afternoon. This is Amanda Noble, City Auditor. Ray Dade, a member of our audit team, will be presenting the summary of the results of our audit on liquor licensing and enforcement, and then we'll both be available to answer questions. So go ahead.
Okay,
Ray,
great. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Ray Dade, Performance Auditor with the City Auditor's Office. Are you all ready for me to proceed?
We are.
Okay. So today I will be discussing the findings of our liquor licensing and enforcement audit. We undertook this audit at the request of a city council member due to concerns about illegal activity surrounding some licensed establishments. We would like to thank members of the Atlanta Police Department's License and Permits Unit for their assistance throughout this audit. Next slide, please. Objectives. So our audit assesses whether controls are in place to ensure that the liquor licensing process is administered fairly and in accordance with code requirements. and whether enforcement procedures are consistent with industry standards. We reviewed available hard copy and digital data for liquor license applications and enforcement practices between October 2018 and September 2020. Some of our methods included reviewing federal, state, and city legal provisions, interviewing the Liquor License and Permits Unit, the Mayor's Office, Law, Planning, Revenue, Fire, and Fulton County Board of Health staff, as well as council members and neighborhood groups. We also examined standard operating procedures, pertinent website information, inspection and complaint documentation, body-worn camera videos, and hard copy application files. We also tested InterGov applicant controls, researched best practices, and worked with planning to map locations of licensed establishments and enforcement activities. Next slide, please. The next two slides summarize our findings. So first, insufficient staff to implement procedures. Although the License and Permits Unit has outlined controls to regulate the liquor licensing process in its standard operating procedures, such as multiple reviews of applications, the department has allocated insufficient staff to implement these procedures, which increases the risk of corruption and fraud. The unit also lacks procedures for verifying food and liquor sales that allow establishments to be exempt from distance requirements. InterGov should improve controls. InterGov is the city's new license and permits online portal. So our review of a random sample of 105 application files found 24, or about 23%, were missing required documents. Either the unit accepted incomplete applications or may have misplaced documents after application vetting. Controls in the unit standard operating procedures could help prevent the acceptance of incomplete applications and establish a standardized process for application vetting progress. However, unit employees are not currently following these procedures. The introduction of InterGov should clarify some elements of the application process, which applicants sometimes find confusing. It should also centralize fee processing. Next slide, please. So House Bill 879, which proposes a statewide liquor licensing system, may alter the application process as well, but it is currently unclear how it will affect city processes because system details were not outlined in the legislation. In regards to enforcement activities, the unit is unable to inspect all locations because the department reassigned most of its evening shift, which was dedicated to enforcement. Additionally, the unit uses fill-in forms to document compliance inspections and lacks procedures for supervisory review of inspections and for follow-up inspections of establishments with documented violations. All complaints filed with the unit are not investigated, and although consistency in issuing due cause packages has improved since July 2019, the procedures associated with the process remain discretionary. Next slide, please. Insufficient staff allocated to implement all required provisions. Exhibit 7 on page 17 of the report shows the License and Permits Unit's positions and vacancies. The unit currently has 21 positions with 11 filled positions and 10 vacancies. The filled positions include one investigator who the unit supervisor told us is on extended leave and not expected to return. 2 shifts are in place, a day watch and an evening watch, but the evening watch only has one of the 5 positions filled. The unit's standard operating procedures require a second investigator to review an application for accuracy after the first investigator and before the application is accepted as complete. However, employees are currently processing applications from intake to mayoral approval due to staffing constraints. Moreover, the current application screening process lacks weekly supervisory review of investigators' progress as required by the unit standard operating procedures. This may allow unqualified applicants to receive a liquor license. Staffing constraints may also increase inherent risks associated with the process, such as fraud and bribery. Next slide, please. Distance exempt establishments not verified at renewal. Exhibit 8 on page 19 illustrates the required distances that licensed establishments must maintain from various structures and spaces. For example, licensed establishments must be 300 feet from hospitals and libraries and 500 feet from parks and churches. City Code Section 10-106C states that establishments, including restaurants that are exempt from distance requirements outlined in Section 10-88 of City Code, must report their revenue from food and liquor sales during annual license renewal. However, the unit does not currently have reporting procedures such as forms and instructions that prompt applicants to self-report or provide third-party verification of food and liquor sales. The unit, therefore, is unable to determine whether establishments currently receiving a distance requirement exemption are complying with code and operating within their appropriate classification. Next slide, please. EnerGov should increase efficiency and improve controls. We reviewed 105 liquor license applications that the unit accepted between October 2018 and September 2020 and found that 24 of them did not have all required documentation. Exhibit 9 on page 21 of the report lists the application types in our sample and number of complete and incomplete applications that the unit accepted. For example, Exhibit 10 on page 22 of the report shows none of our sample of 5 applications for new businesses contained all required documents. Some of the documents required for this application type are residency verification, photo identification, and federal clearance letter. To determine whether unit staff accepted complete applications, we compared each application file to the unit's criteria. Standard operating procedures require investigators to return incomplete applications to the applicant for correction before accepting them or any application fees. Furthermore, standard operating procedures state that the license and permits unit investigators must track the progress of applications assigned to them in their work log and submit it to the unit supervisor each week, but they are not complying with this procedure. Inconsistent management of applications may lead to document loss and inconsistent application vetting. EnerGov should mitigate this problem because all application data and required documents will be available online through the platform. Additionally, city staff reported that some applicants find the application process confusing. A few sources of confusion include forms, website information, inspection requirements, and inexperienced staff who may not be able to instruct applicants on the process. EnerGov should streamline the process, however, to limit confusion. Along with uniform vetting and clarifying the process, EnerGov could process all fees associated with liquor licenses, which would strengthen controls and eliminate cash handling within the unit. Next slide, please. Enforcement activities are insufficient. The License and Permits Unit documented compliance inspections of 157 of 1,455 licensed establishments, or approximately 11% between October 2018 and September 2020. The unit standard operating procedures state that unit employees must inspect all licensed establishments annually. Unit staff told us that the License and Permits Unit could potentially inspect all locations with an evening watch, including a sergeant and 4 enforcement officers. All but one of the unit's evening watch employees was reassigned in late 2018. And due to the limited number of compliance inspections, establishments may not be complying with license requirements. Exhibit 15 on page 34 of the report on the left side of the slide demonstrates how the department could prioritize inspections based on risk. We worked with unit staff to develop this matrix. Some of the highest risk establishments include restaurants with late closing hours and establishments with documented violations. During our examination of establishments with due cause packages, we found that unit employees failed to reinspect 7 locations with documented violations of liquor ordinances. Failure to prioritize these follow-up inspections may contribute to the phenomenon of nuisance properties. Moreover, Exhibit 16 on page 36 of the report on the right side of the slide provides an example of an inspection checklist that Arizona law enforcement uses, which contains specific inspection points and the code sections with which they correspond. The unit's SOPs state that employees must conduct compliance inspections, but they do not describe how the inspection should be conducted. The unit currently uses a fill-in form, but it could standardize compliance inspections with a checklist, which clarifies inspection activities and provides documentation of their completion. Next slide, please. Complaints inconsistently investigated. Exhibit 17 on page 37 of the report on the left side of the slide illustrates complaint types and their origins. Most complaints concern criminal activity and were internal police communications. The most common complaints, aside from criminal activity, were hours of operation, verifying licenses, and general nuisances. Between October 2018 and September 2020, complaints were lodged against 137 establishments, and the unit investigated 46 of them, or 36%. The unit failed to inspect 91 locations with complaints, including 22 locations with 2 or more complaints. The complaint process in the unit's SOPs is limited, and the unit does not comply with it. Complaints appear to be processed at the supervisor's discretion, and inconsistent investigation could also be a result of insufficient staffing. Exhibit 18 on page 38 of the report on the right side of the slide illustrates the location of establishments that the unit had not inspected despite having received complaints against them, which is represented in red dots. And Exhibit 19 on page 38 of the report, also on the right, shows where the unit conducted compliance inspections of establishments that had not received complaints, represented in blue dots. The maps demonstrate that the unit engages in complaint-driven enforcement, but does so inconsistently. Next slide, please. Due cost package issuance is discretionary. The license and permits unit's SOPs state that employees shall begin due cost proceedings when warranted, but the procedures are not specific about which violations warrant a due cost package. During our audit scope, the unit failed to issue due cost packages to 4 of 13 establishments with documented violations of Chapter 10 of City Code. In July 2019, law recommended issuing due cost packages for all violations of City Code to avoid perceptions of unfairness, and consistency in due cost issuance seems to have improved since. Next slide, please. Our report included 13 recommendations to improve liquor licensing and enforcement within the license and permits unit. The department agreed with 11 and partially agreed with 1 recommendation. We also had 1 recommendation for the Department of Finance, with which the department agreed. The recommendations include that the police chief should assign sufficient staff to process applications in accordance with unit procedures, report on staffing, compliance inspections, and complaints to City Council's Public Safety Committee, enforce the use of investigators' work log and weekly supervisory review, update SOPs to provide a process for reporting food and liquor sales of establishments receiving exemptions during renewal, update SOPs to, coordinate with the CFO to use forensic audits to assess license qualifications at renewal, revise the unit's website and forms for consistency with City Code, and train new staff on procedures to limit public confusion, require applicants to pay all fees through InterGov or directly to the Office of Revenue. Next slide, please. We also recommend that the police chief work with law to prepare for City Council consideration amendments to City Code to clarify fee handling requirements, inspect high-risk establishments until each establishment can be inspected annually on a rotating basis, establish detailed procedures for inspections, develop procedures for follow-up inspections of establishments with documented violations, develop procedures for complaints and investigate all medium and high-risk complaints, and establish criteria for due cause packages. Next slide, please. And that concludes our presentation of the liquor licensing and enforcement audit. Thank you all for hearing us, and we will be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you so much. And colleagues, I just want to remind you again, this we're not going to take any action on this today because public safety has held it for a cycle because they had additional follow-up questions that they wanted. So we're not, the paper is not before us to take legislative action, but if anybody has questions for the audit team, raise your hand or let me know.
Yeah, sure.
And otherwise, okay, Mr. Shook. And then Shepard.
Yeah, briefly, and I know this will come back to us. I want to thank the audit board for agreeing to undertake this audit. And I want to thank the auditors for the work they've just presented here. I think it's safe to say we'll be discussing this for a while to come. So thank you for that. My question is, why, and I don't know if we're going to hear from the audit subject either now or next time, but if it's next time, I wonder if the auditors could explain the ambivalence of the audit subject regarding recommendation number 2.
This is Amanda. Yes, I think the department was reluctant to tell the city council what they should report, so they agreed to provide whatever information the council asked for.
Okay, I don't understand the distinction they evidently, feel exists. I guess that's...
Well, when we met with Chief...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well,
when we met with Chief Bryant, he was reluctant to tell the city council, what information they should ask for, and wanted to hear from the council what they'd like to hear. And we thought that was reasonable.
Okay. All right. Well, clearly, when we discuss this next time, clearly one of the things that comes out of this is, to no one's surprise, this unit is understaffed as it has eternally been. And so when we do take this up, and with budget approaching, I'd like to have somebody work up some credible numbers as to what the cost of fully staffed units might look like. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shook. And, I'm going to suggest that those of us on this committee, if possible, if schedules allow, try to call in and listen to public safety next 2 weeks from now, because I get the sense there's going to be a very thorough discussion at that committee, which if it needs to be repeated at our committee, that's fine. But if we are able to dial in to them, that probably be helpful also. All right, Councilmember Shepard, I think I heard you raise your hand also.
Yes, thank you. And I did want to explain that once we got the report, the audit report, it was very revealing to us. I would tell you as a council member and the chair of the public safety, I have some real concerns about this. However, I will say to you all, I'm not surprised. And I see some of it is staffing, but I also see a lot of this is not just staffing. I just think that whole department needs to be retrained. The audit department has done a great job of just really identifying all the different weaknesses and areas that they really need to work on. And so even though we're short now in terms of police officers, some of these things have been happening for quite some time that I have been talking about continuously, and things that I've heard in the community and stress levels I've heard from a lot of things that are happening on the streets in our communities every day based on what we've done. I'm glad that we've got the audit done. It's very revealing. And so we have asked Chief Ryan to come before the Public Safety Committee, and we held it because we want them to go into a little bit more detail in terms of asking questions and going into some follow-up to this, and that's why we held it. We really want to see what the next steps are going to be in terms of this. And so I'm just letting you all know that I'm not happy with this audit, but again, I'm not surprised by it. And there are more things to come. So I just want to let you all know that also. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shepard. if anybody else has questions today from the audit team, that's great. If you want to wait until this comes up before us and the department's here to respond also, we can do that as well. All right, I don't see anybody else with their hands up. Thank you very much to the whole audit team. Thank you to Ms. Dade. I think this is the first time you've reported, or at least reported to this committee, since you moved over to the audit team, and you did an excellent job. So we really appreciate your work. Thank you. All right, let's keep moving on our agenda because it's a pretty long one today. This brings us to section I, our ordinances for first read. We have 13 of them, and so I am going to ask Ms. Kempson-Wright if she wouldn't mind reading those into the record.
Yes, item number 3 is 21-00237, ordinance by Finance Executive Committee to ratify services rendered in connection with Special Procurement Agreement STS 1200495 Oracle Managed Services Receivable CRM and SLS DLT Solutions LLC beginning February 15th, 2021 through March 30th, 2021, and to authorize the Chief Financial Officer to pay outstanding invoices on behalf of the Department of Land and Information Management in an amount not to exceed $74,417.06 in accordance with Section 21163. Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. All contractor work to be charged and paid from the account numbers listed. Item number 4 is 21-00238, an ordinance authorizing the mayor or a designee to enter into amendment number 11 for FC 7148 Citywide Security Guard Services with Dynamic Security Incorporated to extend the term of the agreement on a month-to-month basis for a period of up to 4 months, effective May 31st, 2021, and to increase the billable rate from $13.83 to $15.50 on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management, Parks and Recreation, Municipal Court of Atlanta, and Watershed Management in an amount not to exceed $792,933.50 in accordance with Section 21163 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. Item number 5 is 21-00239, an ordinance authorizing the mayor or her designee to enter into amendment number 10 for FC 8147B Citywide Plumbing Maintenance and Services with the Plumbing Shop Incorporated doing business as Quick Action Plumbing on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management, Atlanta Police Department, Department of Aviation, Department of Corrections, Department of Parks and Recreation, Public Works, Atlanta Department of Transportation, Fire Rescue, and Watershed Management to extend the term of the agreement on a month-to-month basis for a period up to 6 months beginning June 27, 2021, in accordance with Section 21163, Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code, in an amount not to exceed $1,200,000.00. Item number 6 is 21-00240, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute amendment number 3 for FC 6737, Citywide Parking Management and Fee Collection Services with Central Parking System of Georgia Incorporated to extend the term of the agreement on a month-to-month basis for a period up to 12 months, effective July 22nd, 2021, on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management, in accordance with Section 21163, Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. All fees collected shall be deposited into the accounts listed. Item number 7 is 21-00241, an ordinance authorizing the mayor on behalf of the City of Atlanta enter into renewal number 1 of the contract FC 8832 Urban Forestry with Triscapes Incorporated for the planting and maintenance of trees in the city's right-of-way and on other property, and amending the fiscal year 2021 tree trust fund budget by transferring an amount not to exceed $480,948.00 to the FY 2021 budget of Department of Parks and Recreation. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from the fund numbers listed. Item number 8 is 21-00242, an ordinance authorizing the mayor or her designee to execute all appropriate documents for the acquisition of certain property interests necessary for the completion of the Connolly Vault Sewer Capacity Relief Project on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management, authorizing negotiations with the property owners for acquisition of such property interests, authorizing title searches, appraisal surveys, environmental studies, and other items necessary for the acquisition of such property interests, authorizing the mayor and the city attorney to initiate condemnation proceedings pursuant to the declarations of taking methods, Official Code of Georgia codes listed, or other condemnation as may be appropriate pursuant to the codes listed, waiving Article 10, Real Estate and Procurement Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. All contracted work and payments for property interests will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, and organizations listed. Item number 9 is 21-00243. It's an ordinance to amend section 146.26 B, C, D, E, and F of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Atlanta so as to change the ad valorem tax rate of real and personal property for the general levy, debt levy, city parks levy, school operating levy, school debt levy, and the special tax district levy, to provide that the tax rates established herein shall remain fixed each year until amended or repealed. Item number 10 is 21-00244. An ordinance to authorize the mayor or designee in accordance with the provisions of Code Section 21163 to exercise renewal number 1 for FC 9334 Business License and Cashier Management System with Tyler Technologies Incorporated on behalf of the Department of Finance for a term of 1 year, effective May 3rd, 2021, in an amount not to exceed, to be determined, to be charged and paid from the accounts listed. Item number 11 is 21-00245. It's an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into amendment number 2 for FC 8076 arbitrage rebate calculation services with Hilltop Securities Asset Management LLC to extend the term of the contract on a month-to-month basis for a period of up to 8 months, retroactively effective beginning April 28, 2021, on behalf of the Department of Finance to provide arbitrage rebate calculation services for the Department of Aviation, General Fund, Watershed Management, Tax Allocation Districts, and other portfolios in an amount not to exceed $48,625.00 to ratify services and outstanding invoices rendered in accordance with Section 21163. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from the account numbers listed. Number 12 is 21-00246, an ordinance to correct project numbers and funding sources, and ordinance 21-00096. Number 13 is 21-00247, an ordinance authorizing the mayor on behalf of the city to execute all documents necessary for the acquisition of certain property interests necessary for the Cleveland Avenue and Old Hateville Road traffic combo number 1 project, authorizing negotiations with property owners for the acquisition of such property interests, authorizing title searches, appraisals, surveys, and any other items necessary for the acquisition of such property interests, authorizing the mayor and the city attorney in the event negotiations are unsuccessful to institute condemnation proceedings pursuant to the declaration of taking method, official code of Georgia listed, waiving certain provisions of Article 10, Real Estate and Procurement Code of the City of Atlanta. On behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation, all contracted work and payments for property interests to be paid by accounts listed. Item number 14 is 21-00248, an ordinance authorizing the mayor or her designee to enter into amendment number 1 for FC 9878 construction project management software with eBuilder Incorporated on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation and Department of City Planning to add 2 additional 1-year renewal term options to the agreement and exercise renewal option number 3 in an amount not to exceed $229,037.81, and to authorize the CFO to pay outstanding invoices for services rendered during the 90-day extension period in an amount not to exceed $43,669.00. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the account numbers listed. Item number 15, and the last first read is 21-00249. It's an ordinance authorizing the mayor or designee on behalf of the city to execute all documents necessary for the acquisition of certain property interests necessary for the 10th Street multimodal bridge improvements, authorizing negotiations with property owners for the acquisition of such property interests, authorizing title searches, appraisals, surveys, and any other items necessary for the acquisition of such property interests, authorizing the mayor and the city attorney in the event negotiations are unsuccessful to institute condemnation proceedings pursuant to the declaration of taking method, official code of Georgia 3231, waiving certain provisions of Article 10, Real Estate and Procurement Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. On behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation, all contracted work and payments for property interests to be paid from account numbers listed herein and for the purposes.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kempson-Wright. So those, what was that? That was 13 items, I think. Will go along their course, and we'll come back to us in 2 weeks. This brings us to Section J, our ordinances for second read. Item number 16 is 21-0197, ordinance by Finance Executive Committee to anticipate and appropriate the Northwest Atlanta Industrial Area Freight Cluster Plan Grant by amending the fiscal year 21 intergovernmental grant fund, fiscal year 21 general fund, and fiscal year 21 Northwest Atlanta Perry Bolton TAD Fund in an amount not to exceed $312,500.00 and for other purposes. And I think we had either Mr. Bacon or Miss Talon who could tell us what this paper's about. Or if any council members know about this paper.
Hey, good afternoon. This is Kevin Bacon from the Department of City Planning. I was just trying to get off of mute.
No problem.
Happy to speak to this afternoon. What this is doing is we applied for a freight study grant from the Atlanta Regional Commission, and were awarded a grant in the sum of $250,000. The total study budget will be $312,500, which includes our local match. So this is setting up the project fund to go forward with that study.
Okay, sounds good. I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
Archibong, yes. Shepherd, yes.
Westmoreland, yes.
All right, this, while it's calculating, should be 7 yeses, 0 no's. This item's favorable. Item number 17 is 21-00208, an ordinance by Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet authorizing a donation amount not to exceed $2,500 from the Council District 11 carry forward account to Gooder Inc. for senior meal delivery services and for other purposes. And I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
Archibong, yes.
Westmoreland, yes.
Did we get Shepherd? There we go. All right. That's 7 yeses, 0 no's. This item's favorable. We are now at K in resolutions. Item number 18 is 21R3300, a resolution by Councilmember Joyce M. Shepherd providing for the call of a public meeting of the Council of the City of Atlanta for consideration of certain ordinances, which, if adopted and approved, will authorize the City of Atlanta to issue $4 million in aggregate principal amount of various purpose general obligation bonds, the publication of notice to the public of the call and holding of such meeting and for other purposes. And we will have a substitute on this one. I believe it should be in our packet, and let me tell you what the substitute does.
Motion to bring the substitute forward.
All right, thank you. I'll second. All right, thank you. Let's open the vote on that. And I believe the substitute goes ahead and sets the date of the public hearings, which will be May 17th during the full council meeting. So
the vote is open.
All right.
Yes, Archibong.
Westmoreland, yes.
And I think Mr. Shook had said second. It got me down as a second, so we could put Shook and I in the affirmative. All right, the substitute is before us with, I think it should be 7. What's it? There it goes. 7 yeses and 0 no's. So the substitute's now before us, setting the May 17th hearing date. to make a motion to approve on substitute.
Second.
Are we holding on substitute? Approving and holding?
Is that what we? Okay.
Initially, we were
Initially, we were holding, but what does finance want us to do? Mr. Watson, what's the, are we ready to move this forward?
Madam Chair, we did receive notice from the CFO and members of the law department team and the mayor's office that they do wish to move this forward today, and that is the reason for the substitute.
Okay, that's what I thought we were doing. All right. So yeah, let's open the vote on moving this forward on substitute.
Vote is open.
Okay.
Yes, Archibald.
Westmoreland in favor.
All right. That should be 7 yeses, 0 no's. Waiting for it to finish counting. There we go. So this item is favorable on substitute. Next item is 1921R 3406, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee to correct resolution number 17R 4290 adopted by the Atlanta City Council on September 18th, 2017 and approved pursuant to City Charter Section 2-403 on September 27, 2017 for cooperative agreement number FC 8772 CCTV products, services and installation with A, Convergent Technologies LLC, B, CG&E Systems Group LLC, and C, Johnson Controls Inc. for the purpose of correcting the amendment number listed therein and for other purposes. And I believe that this is purely a housekeeping item to just change where we referenced that it was amendment number 3 and it was actually number 5. All right. Let's open the vote. You can put that as a motion by Ide, second by Shook.
The vote is open.
Archibald, yes.
Westmoreland, yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
I'm in the system now, I believe.
Okay.
I think that must be counted.
Okay. It's just counting slowly today. Yeah, 7 yeses, 0 no's. Item number 20 is 21R 3418, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or designee to execute amendment number 2 of the cooperative purchasing agreement FC 1190002, consultant for public safety CAD systems with Mission Critical Partners LLC on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management for additional funding for public safety systems consulting services in an amount not to exceed $88,000, all contracted work to be charged to and paid from the funding numbers listed herein and for other purposes. And my understanding is that the department would like us to hold. That's my motion.
Second.
Let's open the vote.
Vote is open.
Archibald, yes.
Westmoreland, yes.
All right, that's 7 yeses, 0 no's. This item is held. Next item is 21R 3419. We will have an amendment on this one. It's a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor and designee to execute amendment number 2 of the cooperative procurement agreement, CPS 1200570, uwork.com, doing business as Covendus on call IT professionals with uwork.com DBA Covendus on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management to add funding in an amount not to exceed $150,000, 0 cents, all contracted work to be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. I will make a motion to amend, and the amendment updates the amount in the account string, and it's in your packet.
Second.
Let's open the vote on the amendment.
Vote is open.
Archibong, yes.
Westmoreland, yes.
Ms. Kempson, right, what is the new amount in the amendment?
It increased the amount from $150,000 to $500,000.
Okay. All right, so 7 yeses, 0 no's on the motion to amend. The paper is now before us as amended with the $500,000 amount, and I will make a motion to approve as amended.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
Archibong, yes.
Shook eye.
All right, that was 7 yeses, 0 no's. That was favorable as amended. Next item is 2221R 3420, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the City of Atlanta on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management to accept a donation of in-building services from AT&T Mobility National Accounts LLC to be provided at the City of Atlanta Public Safety Annex located at 3493 Donald Lee Holloway Parkway Northwest, Atlanta, Georgia 30331, the value of which is an amount not to exceed $216,000.00 and for other purposes. I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
Archibong, yes.
All right, that is favorable. 7 yeses, 0 no's. The next one is related with a different vendor. It is item number 23. It's 21R 3421, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the City of Atlanta on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management to accept a donation of in-building services for use with Verizon Wireless service from Cellco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless for the City of Atlanta facility located at 55 Trinity Avenue, Atlanta, Georgia 30303, the value of which is an amount not to exceed $631,135.29 and for other purposes. And if Ms. Hayes is with us, will you just tell us on these two papers? It sounds like we are going to get some improved telecom service in city buildings. But if you're with us and you can get off mute, do you mind just telling us what these two papers are for?
Yes. Good afternoon, council members. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, so the two papers are, as you mentioned, it is to improve the cellular connectivity services that we have within city buildings. Currently, there are some dead spots, if you will. This would allow both AT&T and Verizon to install some equipment in the city facilities that will improve the coverage that we receive. And those are currently the two cellular providers that we use throughout the city. So we're providing that opportunity to both providers.
Great. Thank you so much. I'll make a motion to approve item number 23.
Second.
Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
Archibong, yes.
All right, this item is favorable. 7 yeses, 0 no's. Item number 24 is 21R 3422, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor who designee to exercise the third renewal option under Cooperative Purchasing Agreement FC 10465 Security Enhancement Services with Dell Marketing LP on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management for a term not to exceed 1 year, effective May 7th, 2021, an amount not to exceed $2,451,740.30. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from funding numbers listed herein. and for other purposes. I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
Archibong, yes.
All right, this item is favorable. 7 yeses, 0 noes. Item number 25 is 21R3423, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee to correct resolution number 19R3740 adopted by the Atlanta City Council on June 17, 2019 and approved pursuant to City Charter Section 2-403 on June 26, 2019 for cooperative agreement number FC8772 CCTV products, services, and installation with A, Convergent Technologies LLC, B, GC&E Systems Group LLC, and C, Johnson Controls Inc. for the purpose of correcting the amendment numbers listed therein and for other purposes. And it looks again like this is a sort of housekeeping amendment to reflect that the last amendment was actually number 6. I'll make a motion to approve. Let's open the vote.
Vote is open.
Archibong, yes.
All right, this item is favorable. 7 yeses, 0 noes. Item number 26 is 21R3424, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or designee to enter into special procurement agreement SSS 1210211 Leads Online Software Services for investigative software on behalf of the Atlanta Police Foundation in an amount not to exceed $318,045.00 in accordance with Section 2-1191 of the Procurement of Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. All costs shall be charged to and paid from the funding numbers listed herein and for other purposes. And if Deputy Chief Shearbaum is with us and able to speak, will you just tell us what this software, what APD does with this software?
Strategy and Special. Good afternoon. This is Captain Wagaman with the Atlanta Police Department Strategy and Special Projects Division, standing in for Deputy Chief Shearbaum. Leads Online is an investigative tool that we utilize daily. It is able to check serial numbers for stolen items and help us link cases together to have a proper resolution in those cases.
All right, fantastic. Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
Yes, Archibong.
All right, this item is favorable with 7 yeses, 0 noes. Item number 27 is 21R3425, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor who designate to exercise renewal number 3 for agreement FC7216 natural gas support services with the Georgia Municipal Association for natural gas consumption services for a term of 1 year, beginning June 12, 2021 through June 11, 2022, and an amount not to exceed 0.8 cents per therm for gas delivered under the Atlanta Gas Light Rate GLL firm and 0.3 cents per therm for gas delivered under Atlanta Gas Light Rate Interruptible. All funds to be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
Yes, Archibong.
All right, this item is favorable, 7 yeses, 0 noes. Next item is 28, 21R3426, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor who designee to issue task order number FC10641J-03 for FC10641J, job order contracting services small with Pittsburgh Parker Fry JV LLC for the purpose of completing ADA upgrades and concrete repairs at Atlanta Fire Rescue Fire Station 21. On behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management, an amount not to exceed $709,207.01, all work to be charged to and paid from the council's this year end and for other purposes. Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Open the vote.
The vote is open.
Mr. Dickens. There we go. 7 yeses, 0 noes. This item is favorable. Item number 29 is 21R3427, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or designee to execute amendment number 3 of agreement FC 10347, roof repair, replacement, and maintenance services with Rycars Construction LLC on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management to add the Department of Public Works as an authorized user in an amount not to exceed $150,000.00. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from the fund department organization and account number listed herein and for other purposes. I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
All right, this item is favorable, 7 yeses and 0 noes. The next item is 21R3428, which is a resolution by Finance Executive Committee to correct Resolution 21R3258 adopted by City Council on March 15, 2021 by correcting the department organization number of the account string and for other purposes. And again, this was just a Scrivener's error. All right, let's open the vote. Motion by Ide, second by Shook.
The vote is open.
This item is favorable, 7 yeses, 0 noes. Next item is 31. And I'm going to take 31 through 37 together, but let's go down. 36 needs to be amended first. So let's jump down there and do the amendment, then we can take them as a block. So 36 is 21R3434, which I'm going to make a motion to amend first to put the right amount in.
Second.
All right. Let's open the vote on the amendment.
The vote is open.
Ms. Kempson, right, what is the amended amount?
The amended amount decreases. It's currently $298,226. The amendment changes it to $298,116.
Okay. All right. That has been amended with 7 yeses and 0 noes. I'm going to back up to the top and read in this block together. Number 31 is 21R3429, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the CFO to refund $24,493.85 to RevIO LLC for the purpose of reimbursing overpayment of 2019 business license taxes and fees. All funds to be charged to and paid from the fund department organization account numbers listed herein. Plexia 730012, refund 151200, accounting and for other purposes. Item number 32 is 21R3430, a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the CFO to refund $7,025.38 to Lead Forensics Inc. for the purpose of reimbursing overpayment of 2019 business license expenses. Fees, all funds to be charged to and paid from the account numbers listed herein. Item number 33 is 21R3431, a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the CFO to refund $6,492.20 to DeFore Drywall Supply Inc. for the purpose of reimbursing overpayment of 2018 business license taxes and fees. All funds to be charged to and paid from the fund department organization account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. 1 second. The next one is 21R 3432, item number 34, a resolution by finance exec authorizing the CFO to refund $13,545.23 to Acuity Specialty Products, Inc. for the purpose of reimbursing overpayment of 2019 business license taxes and fees. All funds to be charged to and paid from the fund department organization accounts listed herein. 35 is 21R. 34 is 33, a resolution by finance exec authorizing the CFO to refund $20,006.44 to Canam Steel Corp. Inc. for the purpose of reimbursing overpayment of 2017 business license taxes and fees. All funds to be charged to and paid from the fund and account numbers listed herein. 36 is 21R. 34, and as amended, it is a resolution by finance exec authorizing the CFO to refund $298,116.42. Ms. Kempson, right? Did I get that number right for this one? 298,116.42?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. To Delta Materials Services, LLC, for the purpose of reimbursing overpayment of 2019 business license taxes and fees. All funds to be charged to and paid from the department organization numbers listed here for other purposes. And 37 is 21R. 34, 35, a resolution by finance exec authorizing CFO to refund $82,944.49 to Swiss Watch Expo, Inc. for the purpose of reimbursing overpayment of 2016 business license taxes and fees. All funds to be charged to and paid from the account numbers listed herein. I'll make a motion to approve 31 through 37 with number 36 as amended.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote on those items.
The vote is open.
All 7 items are favorable, with item 36 being favorable as amended. This brings us to section L, our dual referred items. Item number 38, coming to us from CDHS, it is 21-0210, an ordinance by Councilmember Carla Smith, as substituted by Community Development Human Services Committee to waive the source selection and payment provisions contained in the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code, including but not limited to Code Section 2-1547, leases of city and real property, and to authorize the mayor or designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into a lease agreement with the Grant Park Conservancy for the lease of a city-owned building within Grant Park located at 880 Cherokee Avenue for an initial term that will run from the date of execution through August 21st, 2022, with one 5-year renewal option in exchange for the Grant Park Conservancy's agreement to pay for all routine maintenance costs associated with the property and its use and any necessary routine repairs thereof, which would ordinarily be the responsibility of the city for the purpose of furthering the mission of the Conservancy and benefiting Grant Park and for other items, for other purposes. And my understanding was that this is favorable from CD yesterday, where there was a substitute that attached both the map of the property and the MOU. Mr. Westmoreland, anything to add? Okay. That was motion by...
I'll second Mr. Matt's motion.
Okay. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
I think Mr. Shook needs to be recorded in the affirmative. I think he had said second at the same time as...
So, yeah, I'm sorry. I was kind of mulling it over. I guess I'll vote aye.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard you. I'm not trying to make a decision for you. You can vote however you want to. You just have to call Councilmember Smith after your vote. All right. That's 7 yeses, 0 no's. That item is favorable. Item number 39 is 21-0211, an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone as amended by Community Development and Human Services Committee to authorize the CFO to make transfers within the Coronavirus Relief Funds provided to the city pursuant to the CARES Act, the total of which shall be utilized to cover costs that are necessary expenditures incurred due to the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19 that were not accounted for in the budget approved as of March 27, 2020, the date of the enactment of the CARES Act and that were incurred during the period that began on March 1st, 2020 and ends on December 31st, 2021, and for other purposes. And it looks like at CD, there was an amendment that attached the list of the departmental transfers. Is that right, Mr. Westmoreland?
Yes, ma'am. I'll make a motion to approve.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Do we need to do something else here?
Yes, ma'am. We need to amend this one also to update Exhibit A. Some of the category totals under the revised allocation had to be revised.
Withdrawn.
Okay. All right. So since CD, they need to revise one more time?
Yes, and Mr. Deloach is on the line to speak to it.
Okay. Mr. Deloach. Mr. Deloach?
Good afternoon, committee. This is Jerry Deloach. The amendment seeks to revise or tweak the numbers that are associated with the three programs that we're trying to increase funding for. Those fundings increase the allocation to AIM, they increase the allocation for the homeless program, and they increase the allocation to United Way, which is managing the emergency rental assistance program.
All right. It looks like I have somebody. Mr. Westmoreland, do you have your hand up?
I do. I'm also trying to find the amendment in our packet. Mr. Deloach, can you speak a little more specifically to how they changed since yesterday?
Give me a second so I can pull it up. Okay. The revised one increases the allocation. Well, it shows a decrease in the allocation for medical expenses, and it shows an increase in the allocation to provision economic support, which increased to United Way by $1,520,000, and it shows a decrease for the public health expenses associated with the testing program. And that's the total of what it shows.
Yeah, no, I see it now. Okay, thank you. Motion to whatever you need, Madam Chair, amend.
Okay. I'm happy to second that, so let's vote on the amendment.
Shook eye.
The vote is open.
All right, that's 7 yeses, 0 no's to amend. It's now before us with the amendments. I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote. Let's see. Mr. Westmoreland, you have your hand back up, or is that still there?
Nope. I do not.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Vote is open.
Councilmember Archibong. All right, that's favorable as amended. 7 yeses, 0 no's. See where we were. That was 39, so 40. Again, coming out of CD is 21-0-0214, an ordinance by Councilmember Andre L. Boone as amended by Community Development Human Services Committee to authorize the mayor who does need to enter into updated contracts with various project sponsors to continue to provide emergency support to vulnerable populations during the COVID-19 pandemic, using funds available to the city through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, pursuant to Ordinance 20-01335, and for other purposes. And I think on this one, we are good to Do we need to amend this one, Ms. Kempson-Wright, to attach the Exhibit A?
No, we're good on this one. The amendment's already attached. Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Let's open the vote.
Vote is open.
All right, this item is favorable. 7 yeses, 0 no's. Let's see what else has come out of other committees. All right, I think the next one looks like it is number 55, which is 210-0001, an ordinance by Councilmember Nadeline M. Archibong to provide for the annexation of property located at 2011 Memorial Drive Southeast, Atlanta, Georgia, 30317, and 2015 Memorial Drive Southeast, Atlanta, Georgia, 30317, into the corporate limits of the city of Atlanta, Georgia, pursuant to the 100% method, to extend the boundaries of the Atlanta Independent School System, to notify the Department of Community Affairs of the state of Georgia of such annexation and for other purposes. And are we moving this one or holding this one? Is it ready to move forward with the other papers?
Yes, the companion zoning and CDH items were adopted at the April 19th agenda.
Okay. Councilmember Archibong, you want to make a motion, or I'm happy to? Well, I think we still have Councilmember Archibong with us. I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
I just wanted to make sure, since we have the sponsor on the committee, that was what you wanted to do. If you are with us, Councilor Archibong.
Madam Chair, do we have other items of business?
I'm sorry, this phone is acting up. Can you
hear us?
I can. I'm sorry. This phone was acting up. Yes, I am supportive of this. Yes.
Okay. That's what I just...
Thank you very much.
I couldn't hear you, so I just wanted to make sure that you were ready for this to go forward.
Yes, and thank you for the vote. It was supported by the neighbors in Kirkwood as well as the MPUO. And the comments that were made, just as an FYI, that would be a year down the road. The developer would have to come back and seek a rezoning and would have to go through the gauntlet to get to that point. So, but for right now, this is the right thing for us to do, and I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, that had been a motion by Ide and a second by Shook, unless you want to make the motion, Councilmember Archibong, either way. But we can go ahead and open the vote.
That's not necessary. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, it looks like the votes are in. All right. Sorry. That's 7 yeses, 0 no's. All right. So 55 was favorable. Item number 59 is 21R3151. A resolution by Finance Executive Committee adopting the fiscal year 2022 update to the City of Atlanta's financial stabilization plan for years 2022 to 2026 and for other purposes. So this is our 5-year plan, and I'm going to make a motion to amend to attach the presentation that we were provided today.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote on the amendment.
The vote is open.
All right, that was 7 yeses, 0 no's to amend. I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Let's open the vote.
vote is open.
This is favorable as amended. The next item is 21R 3211, a resolution by Councilmember Jennifer and Ide authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to refund customers for overpayments to water and sewer accounts in an amount of blank, all funds to be charged to and paid from Fund Department Organization, account numbers 5051, 0001, 122, 6009, and for other purposes. And we need to bring forward the substitute that fills in the amount. Give me 1 second. I'll tell you what the amount is.
Second.
All right, let's. Well, I might be lying to you, Miss. Let me see. Ms. Kempton, right? Can you tell us the amount? I found it. It's $683,708.27. So let's open the vote on bringing forward the substitute.
Vote is open.
All right, 7 yeses, 0 no's. The substitute is before us. I make a motion to adopt on substitute.
Second.
Open the vote.
Vote is open.
Item's favorable, 7 yeses, 0 no's. Next item is 61, which is 21O0169. This one also has a substitute. It's an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee to authorize the CFO to amend the fiscal year 2021 Intergovernmental Grant Fund and Trust Fund by transferring appropriations from the Department of City Planning and adding appropriations to the Department of Transportation in an amount not to exceed, and the new amount is $24 million. And authorizing the CFO to transfer the department organizations and accounts as listed herein in connection to the Department of Transportation and for other purposes. So I'll make a motion to substitute.
Second.
Let's open the vote on the substitute, bringing forward the substitute.
The vote is open.
All right, that was 7 yeses, 0 no's. The substitute is before us. So I will make a motion to approve on substitute.
Second.
Open the vote.
The vote is open.
Seven yeses, 0 no's. This item's favorable. Brings us down to section N, our walk-in legislation. Be in your packet, item number 64, which is ELMS number 23882, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee adopting the fiscal year 2022 proposed budget to include all funds in for other purposes. And this will obviously be amended as we move, or substituted as we move through the process, but this is our first step in getting the budget before us. So I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
Let's open the vote on item 64.
Madam Chair, it's a first read, so you all just are accepting it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. All right, so that will move along and come back to us.
Yes.
So section O, we have 2 items that came out of transportation for the technical reasons they need to come before us. The first one is 65, which is 21O0194, an ordinance by Transportation Committee to authorize the mayor or designee in accordance with section 2-1163C, Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code, to ratify contract FC 10171 for the Children's Drive over South Utoy Creek Bridge replacement project with Kiewit Infrastructure South Co. and to authorize the CFO on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation to pay all outstanding invoices in an amount not to exceed $126,730.13. All invoices to be charged to and paid from the various fund, department, organization, and account numbers and for other purposes. And this was favorable by transportation this morning. It got referred to us because it includes the payment of outstanding invoices that needs to be signed off on by FEC. So I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
All right, that item's favorable. 7 yeses, 0 noes. And what I think is our last item is 66-21-0-0195, a substitute ordinance by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor, her designee, on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute all appropriate documents to grant a utility easement across the real property known as 0 Sizemore Avenue, Northwest Atlanta, land lot 247 of the 17th District of Fulton County, Georgia, to the Georgia Power Company for the purpose of installing underground power distribution facilities, waiving any conflicting provision of Article 10, Division 14, Subdivision 3, Section 2-1571, 2-1572, 2-1574 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, and for other purposes. And again, this was favorable out of transportation, but it needed to come before FEC because it involved a waiver of the procurement code. So I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
Let's open the vote.
Vote is open.
This item is favorable. 7 yeses, 0 noes. That concludes all of our legislative items, I believe. I don't know if Mr. Norman is still with us and has been able to get us the vacancy rate or numbers that we had talked about at the beginning of the meeting. So if you're with us, Mr. Norman, and you were able to get those numbers, we're still here.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, and so I just wanted to make sure I clarify. I do have a percentage number for you. I just want to clarify, and so I'm sure as you're aware, when we talk about vacancies, there clearly are vacancies that exist within departments that are not funded as part of the prior budget year. And so I just want to make sure as we pull those metrics, are you interested in the overall number of vacancies and build up that from a percentage, or are you looking for those funded vacancies or positions that were funded as part of FY21 that are currently vacant?
Mr. Matsukat, it was your question originally. Do you want to?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I would be interested in both numbers because I think they each tell an interesting story. Thank you.
Okay. And so, I respectfully request we be allowed to differentiate those and run those numbers, because while I can take a quick look at the general fund departments, without separating, those individuals, I think it'd be much more instructive, I think, for the information you're trying to dig with, if we can sort that appropriately for you. So I will have the team run those and provide them to you.
Are there any numbers you can share with us while we're here on the phone right now?
Yeah, I'm hesitant to do that without it being split. I would tell you in general, looking at the general fund, there's an approximate 13% vacancy, but that is not splitting out those that are funded versus those that are unfunded.
Okay, well, how about in 2 weeks you come back? And I'll say this does seem to happen. If you and your staff can can anticipate some questions that we may have when you make your quarterly report. That's when we really have, our focus on HRs when you're making your reports. So it's a little bit frustrating when we ask what I think we feel like are shouldn't be unexpected questions, particularly if we're rolling into the budget season, to know how many vacancies are in the city.
No, I mean, just to be clear, we're aware of how many vacancies there are, but as I think we discussed prior, at this committee, and we are reporting, these are the head count metrics we have traditionally reported for FY21 as part of this presentation are the same as we have the previous quarters. But with the vacancy review board, with the focus being more on the dollar spend, recognizing that we do have vacancies, for example, that were originally funded for FY21, where in fact departments, for example, may have made a decision at some point during FY21, for example, to substitute not filling two funded positions in lieu of a position that may not have been originally funded. And so that has really been the metric that, we have focused on relative to the availability of the actual personnel dollars as opposed to what's sitting in the bucket. But, we obviously do have that information. And as a matter of fact, we're engaged in that reconciliation process as well as we are looking at the dynamics relative to the personnel paper and also providing that information for departments as part of preparation for their budget hearings. But no, we'd be more than happy to provide that information.
All right. It really seems to me, and I think several of my colleagues, that this should be information that you should have been able to report today. We're in the budget process. We're looking at all of those numbers. And it doesn't seem like it should be something that you should have to go back and say you'll come back to us another time. We're here in a public meeting, and these are issues that we want to ask in public and get answered in public. So, I'm just going to say again, it's happened before that when the HR quarterly report comes around, we can't get the questions answered. So, if you can come back in 2 weeks and provide us those numbers, I'd appreciate it. But going forward, I'd appreciate it to, think through what information would be reasonable for council to want to know when you come and report to us.
No, I think that's fair. Once again, I'll just note for FY21, this is the first time we've been asked to report on vacancies. So our reported metrics haven't changed in any of the 4 presentations we've provided to this body.
All right. It seems like something that's reasonable to ask of an HR department of what the vacancies are in an entity, but we'll hear from you in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Colleagues, anything else before we adjourn for the day? All right. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Thank you for everybody for being here.